And the effect of this is not only do the British troops die at Arnhem, but there's loads of others surrounded near Arnhem in a place called, you might have heard of, if you've looked into the Bilderberg, called Oosterbeek. This is a suburb of Arnhem. And the British troops were surrounded for about 4 or 5 days, being massacred by the Germans. And the Germans even nicknamed it the Hexenkessel, the witch's cauldron. Because so many British paratroopers were being massacred in that little section. Now, Carrington was implicated in that because he didn't go down the road, sat around for 17 hours in a tank when he could have relieved these paratroopers, but also Prince Bernhard chose that as the place, the exact same place to have the first Bilderberg meeting 10 years afterwards, the Witch's Cauldron. Now, if you haven't seen the film A Bridge Too Far, you'll probably be watching it with different eyes now when you see that incident with Robert Redford in the film. So, that was essentially, many people look at this, I certainly look at it, as a way of keeping the war going a bit longer. So that the Nazis had the chance to do what Hitler wanted them to do, which was to bury their treasure. They needed an extra 6 months to get all the loot from Europe out of Germany and into places like South America, Paraguay, to Argentina, some of it to Indonesia, and obviously quite a lot to Switzerland and other places. But they needed that extra time, and Carrington gave them that time. So this is one of the reasons I think this is really, you know, Carrington, I always thought of a sort of nice fluffy guy, but why did he sit in that tank? He won't answer questions. We've asked him to come on the radio and talk about it. He won't come and talk about it. Doesn't reply to letters, but someone who does talk about it is a guy called T. Moffat Burries. He's still alive. He was one of the American paratroopers that took the bridge. And he said he went over to Carrington in his tank, and he said, I cocked my Tommy gun, and I pointed at Carrington's head, and I said, get down that blankety-blank road now, before I blow your blankety-blank head off. And of course, Carrington didn't. He went, sat in his tank and stayed there. So, many people involved in that battle will say that the war could have been finished by Christmas 1944 if they'd have been successful. I don't think it was a bridge too far at all. I think it was a bridge quite near, in fact, very near. It was 7 miles down the road, and now we know there was nothing in the way. So why didn't they just finish the war early? It saved millions of lives. As Major Tony Hibbert says, who's still alive, he was at the bridge at Arnhem. Why didn't they come down and rescue us? We want to know. So that's the sort of people who have been chairing this meeting. Carrington and, in the past, Carrington and Prince Bernhard. The book, which explains what happened to that Nazi loot, is called Bormann, Nazi in Exile. He was Hitler's deputy, and he went off over to South America. A lot of people think he died after the war. He didn't. And he set up 750 corporations over in South America, using those corporations, I think now, as Hitler used tank divisions, and as other people have in the past used armies, those banks and corporations are being used to take over in a similar sort of way to they were in the past. And that's essentially what I think we're dealing with when we're dealing with these guys, is a takeover. It's hostile takeover. They're buying things up like never before. So they're a pretty crooked bunch, in my view. Now, it's all a little bit dark, some of this stuff, of course, so it's important that we got the sun out today, and also that we're all able to make new friends and meet up with old acquaintances. Because there is a fantastic future for us all, in fact. Many people are understanding that the money system is not working. It certainly doesn't serve us. We are becoming its slaves rather than a master to the money system. And of course these banks have got us in their clutches because they took our land away many years ago in the enclosures. And so now we need that money, don't we, to feed our kids, to feed our families. And one of the things, messages I'd like to leave you with today is disconnect from Babylon. This was a sort of message that was put out by Luton's Exodus Collective a few years ago when they were doing free parties before the criminal justice Justice Act, and actually after the Criminal Justice Act too. Disconnect from Babylon. Look at the way that you can lead your life where you're not tied in to this money system. So that, I mean, there is all sorts of ways of doing that. That's campaigning for different money systems, using alternative money systems, or even some people who are able to get away from that completely and become self-sufficient. I mean, that's an old idea, but actually that's one of the ways that we can actually beat these people, I think, is to disconnect from that financial system that we know is rotten. Hello? The other thing is, I always make references to books like The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, because I think we are rather like those little hobbits. We haven't got the army to go and take these people or whatever. What we are is we're the people who will inspire others to do it around other parts of the world. Because Tolkien wasn't a stupid guy. He had a lot of symbology in his books, and he was at Oxford at the same time as C.H. Charles was translating a lot of Old Testament Apocrypha, books that had never been translated into English before around. He talked about Sauron, didn't he? No, someone's just switched it off again, apparently. But yeah, he talked about Sauron, the Dark Lord Sauron. And I sometimes feel like that when I look at foreign policy. You know, you see things are going wrong in Syria, so it's time to do something to us over here. The eye has turned away, it's now looking down here. But the symbology in The Lord of the Rings should be clear to us. This eye of Sauron.
Hello, that's better. Welcome. The eye of Sauron, thanks for the petrol, guys. Thanks, Mr. Rockefeller, sorting that out, maybe. The eye of Sauron is a symbol for the Illuminati. People may think, oh, the Illuminati is a silly thing. A lot of people here, I don't think, do. If you look into the history of it, John Robison, who was the secretary of the Royal Society in Edinburgh back in the late 1700s, wrote a fascinating book about it. I would definitely recommend you read it. It's very well written. And he explains it was like the MP's expenses scandal of its day. Who are these guys? What are they trying to do to us? Well, it's a massive sleeper cell. That's what he said. Robison was the inventor, amongst other things, of the the siren, a steam-powered thing that screamed out down the ages to us. And so have a look at that. There's also Abbe Barruel wrote a very good book on the Illuminati of the late 1700s. Their objective was to control politics, to control our minds, and to control religion, to control our hearts. And it was a totally evil system based on the old Jesuit system, which had been very successful, but they decided to use it for their own private and personal gain. The other symbol in The Lord of the Rings is the white hand of Saruman. Now, he's the guy, isn't he? He should be one of us. We thought he was on our side. But then we found out, oh no, he was on the bad guy's side. The symbology there is the white hand. Now, if anyone knows anything about Freemasonry, they'll know that they love to wear their little white gloves in their little Freemasonic lodges. The white hand of Saruman, the white hand of the traitor to mankind. So I'll leave you with some of those thoughts, because Freemasonry is definitely connected here, right? We've got Joseph Ratzinger, who, with his SS pal Bernhard, created these meetings in the first place. He was a Freemason. The Poles have dug that out. A lot of people in Poland are getting interested in digging out information about the Bilderbergs because there's much more awareness of it nowadays. The other Freemason is Andrew Palmer. Andrew Palmer was the creator and the organiser of the last Bilderberg conference to happen in the UK. That happened in Turnberry on a big golf course in Scotland. 15 years ago or so, 1998. Now, Andrew Palmer was the personal secretary to the Duke of Kent. The Duke of Kent, of course, being the Grand Master of the United Grand Lodge World Freemasonry. So the connections are there. Maybe we'll find more connections, I'm sure we will, in years to come. But I think I'll just leave you with, well, I keep saying that, but I will leave you with the thought of just, if we see ourselves as the little Hobbit army, we know we won't lose and we can't lose. These guys are going down. So thanks very much for listening, everybody. See you again next year, maybe, or next time we come to the Britain. Thank you.